Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and it's the 4th of April 2023. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So I know you're probably sick of hearing about this, but I think it's worth doing a little bit of a follow-up on the Arbitrum governance kind of drama that I talked about yesterday, because I did get a bunch of feedback about my opinion on what happened, and I'm always open to feedback, and I'm always welcome to discussing it. We had some lively and good discussions in the Daily Gwei Discord channel today about this, but what I wanted to, I guess, clarify for people was my overall position on this and why I think people are still getting confused about this and have a misunderstanding about it. So I would say that my overall position on this and why I sounded too forgiving on yesterday's coverage, and that's basically the main criticism that I got, was because I actually don't think that they did anything wrong, right? And when I say they here, it's a really broad term because of the second thing I'm going to talk about, and that's the fact that people don't actually understand, from what I can tell, that there are separate entities at play here. When people say, "Oh, Arbitrum did this" or "Arbitrum did that," who are you referencing, right? Like, there are different stakeholders as part of this ecosystem now. So after the DAO and the token was kind of created, the Arbitrum ecosystem split off into two main groups. There's the Arbitrum Foundation, which was spun up for before the token generation event and before the DAO was spun up. And then there is Off-Chain Labs, which is the original company that built Arbitrum and still obviously continues to build Arbitrum to this day. Now, legally, physically, logically, the Arbitrum Foundation and Off-Chain Labs are supposed to be completely separate entities, right? From all those parameters that I mentioned, like legally and stuff like that. They're supposed to be totally separate. And I did mention this yesterday, but I think it's worth reiterating that point. That is a legal requirement, basically, or basically what the lawyers will tell anyone trying to spin up a DAO and a token is that the original team cannot be the ones that, the original team, the original company needs to spin out a kind of structure like a foundation or something that the foundation issues the token and creates the DAO and all that sorts of stuff, right? And then pays it out to the relevant parties like that, so that there is the term used, arm's length kind of distinction between the two kind of entities here. And I think that's the main thing people are missing, because you don't see this stuff, right? This stuff is not discussed out in the open. This is all done behind closed doors, and this is done for pretty much every big and even relatively big or relatively small token and DAO launch. All of this stuff happens in the background. The lawyers get involved. They come up with a way to logically separate things so that the team is legally protected from any kind of complications down the line. They are protected on the regulatory front as well, or at least they try to be as protected as possible. And because there is no clear guidance from the regulators on these sorts of things, the lawyers tend to take a very conservative approach here. So that's the context I think you need to follow on to my next point, which is around people having an issue with the vote itself. Now, I said yesterday that I believe that it really boiled down to overall a really shitty communications issue. Now, I want to define that a bit further, because I think people got confused when I said that. So where I think the communications breakdown was that the decision to allocate those 750 million ARB tokens to the foundation was made before the DAO was created. It was made before the token was generated. It was part of the initial thing that was the initial part of initial bunch of decisions that were made before the DAO and before the foundation the token went live. Now, because of that, that means that the Arbitrum token holders, or ARB token holders, and the DAO governance process does not apply to that decision, right? It never did, because that decision was already made. Now, where the communications breakdown was that was a big communications breakdown there, because I don't think the Off-Chain Labs or the Arbitrum Foundation communicated that clearly enough to people that decision had already been made, and the vote was purely symbolic, purely a way of formalizing it, and, as I said, ratification of the decision that had already been made. So that's where a lot of the breakdown of the communication came from. And I did say yesterday that that is totally fair to kind of like criticize the Arbitrum ecosystem for. There's nothing wrong with that. With criticizing that, they made a big error in judgment there by not communicating that better. But what I'm seeing people complain about is that, oh, well, the ARB token's actually not worth anything if they can just ignore the vote. But that's the point I'm trying to get at here. They're not ignoring the vote, so to speak, because the vote is not on the decision. The vote is a symbolic kind of thing. You want to call it decentralization theater. It's literally, in my opinion, only being done to appease regulators. And this happens a lot in lots of different projects where they'll do this kind of decentralization theater because they have to do it to appease regulators or to look like they're making a best effort to essentially be regulatorily compliant, which is again a consequence of there not being clear guidance around this stuff. So to you and me as crypto natives, it looks stupid, right? It looks really, really silly that they're doing this sorts of stuff. You're thinking to yourself, why did this even become a thing? Why did AIP1 even go to a vote from the token holders if the decision had already been made and the outcome didn't matter? Yes, that's completely stupid, and I agree with you, it's dumb, but that's just the way these things work right now, and it's an unfortunate consequence, as I said, of the lack of regulatory clarity. So I'm not trying to make excuses here or anything like that for the actions that were taken. I do think that even putting the AIP1 out for a ratification vote, or whatever they want to call it, was dumb as well. It's another big communications issue there. But the fact of the matter is that the actual decision of where those tokens were allocated to had already been made, and people are going on about legal repercussions for off-chain labs and stuff like that. There's no, from what I can tell, legal basis for that, because again, the decision was made and the tokens were allocated before all of the DAO stuff got stood up, before the token went live. So because of that, they technically, and I think technicalities is at the heart of the legal system here, right? They technically did nothing wrong, right? The facts were that the decision was made beforehand. Maybe you could say that, or I guess legally, I don't know about the legal side here, maybe legally you could press them and say, why did you even put this up for a vote if the decision had already been made? And that's totally fair, as I said, to criticize them for. But I think generally people really need to understand that the governance process, the token voting process for the decision to allocate those tokens was never meant to be a thing, and it should never have been launched as a vote, because it was never going to affect the outcome, because the decision had already been made. So hopefully I've been clear on that. And I don't want to spend too much time on this topic because there is a bunch of other stuff to get through that I think is very interesting, more interesting than this topic. But yeah, I just want people to realize that is the facts, right? Those are the facts as I understand them, and I verified this with various people. I've had many discussions with people over the last 24, 48 hours with a lot of people I respect, and really after walking them through all of this sorts of stuff, as I've just explained to you guys, they understood my point of view here. And the thing is, you can understand my point of view and still disagree with me. That's totally fine. I actually don't want to try and convince you in such a way where you're just like, give up on disagreeing with me just because I've exhausted you in a debate or something like that. I hate when people do that, where they basically just give in because they can't be bothered debating anymore. They've just been exhausted, and not. I don't think it actually pushes anything forward. I think what that does is it basically silences people, and I don't like that. So if you still disagree with what I'm saying, if you still think that I'm wrong about this, please let me know. But do let me know in the Discord channel, because on the YouTube comments, it's harder to have a good conversation there because YouTube comments aren't made for that. So in the Discord channel, you can tag me there, and I'll get back to you on that. If I'm sleeping, it'll probably be a few hours before I get back to you, but I'm always down to have conversations about this, because I don't claim to be the all-seeing seer that knows everything and that everything I say is right. I just give my opinions of the way I see things. That's what I've always done on the Refuel, and everyone is free to agree or disagree with me, or maybe you don't even have an opinion. That's fine too. The funny thing is like most people actually don't have a strong opinion about things. It's really the people that do have a strong opinion that are quite loud about it, and I think that's totally fine. I mean, I have a strong opinion on a lot of things, but I tend to live by the mantra of strong opinions weakly held. And what that means to me is basically have a strong opinion about something that you actually believe in and you've run through the reasoning behind it, and you've come to a conclusion based on logic and facts. But if there are new logic and facts presented to you that make a lot of sense and actually kind of like go against what you thought was true, then you should be able to change your mind and change your opinion on something and not just be stubborn about it. That's the way I try to live with things. Maybe I don't always succeed at that. I'm not perfect. Obviously, none of us are. We're human. But I think it's always good to have the discussions anyway and try to get your points across. Anyway, on that note, I'm going to leave that one at that. As I said, please do ping me in the Discord channel if you want to have a deeper discussion about this. I'm always happy to do that. All right, on to some more positive news here. So, Peter from the Geth team has been teasing a bunch of EIP-4844 related stuff lately. Well, this is a dashboard where Peter says, or has captioned it with, synthetic stress test for my 4844 blob transaction pool. Attach 0 to 4 blobs to every inbound transaction on mainnet and dump it into the blob pool. Result, 10 gig worth of pending transactions at a churn rate of 150 per block equals 80 milliseconds hit after block processing. Negligible RAM usage. This is very cool. From my understanding, from my reading here, this is basically Peter testing out the load the EIP-4844 would put on the Geth execution layer client here, and if it will actually lead to any significant bump in hardware requirements. And it seems like it won't. It seems like it doesn't, as it's currently spec'd out. And I believe that Peter's actually hitting this with a much larger capacity than what would actually be going into blocks when this has been launched on mainnet here. So it seems things are running very smoothly. Now, this is really exciting to see as well, because this is basically like private dev nets that the developers are doing right now, and it usually goes the spec and the research is being done, private dev nets are being spun up, then you have public dev nets, then you have private/public test nets being or short-lived test nets, then you have the long-lived test nets that are upgraded, Sepolia and Gurley, and then you have it going to mainnet. So we see that process happen with pretty much every set of network upgrades that eventually come to mainnet, and that's why this is very promising to see. So I guess thank you to Peter for sharing this. It's really great to see progress being made here on proto-dank sharding or EIP-4844. He also shared a tracker for Geth for EIP-4844. He said a lot of work is scattered in a couple of pull requests on GitHub that will need to be pulled out to review and merged in a smaller reviewable chunks. Note, it's not a public to-do list, it's a progress tracker. So you can check out this as well, which I'll link in the YouTube description below. And Terrence from the Off-Chain Labs team had his thread about the latest EIP-4844 call, all the notes here, which I'll also link in the YouTube description below. But generally, things on 4844 are progressing very nicely. I am currently under no, or I see no indications of this of 4844 not being included in the next Ethereum network upgrade, which we'll hopefully get by the end of this year. It seems progress is being made at a rapid pace here. Everyone's very excited to ship this. It is a huge upgrade coming to the network. It is obviously a much bigger upgrade than something like beacon chain withdrawals, but it depends on how you look at it as well. For me, beacon chain withdrawals is huge in the fact that it's the final kind of piece of the puzzle to complete Ethereum's transition to proof of stake, and it has a lot of second order consequences for the network, such as the great reshuffling that I've spoken about before. But also 4844 is a big upgrade for different reasons, right? It's the first version of dank sharding being deployed to the network. It is something that a lot of different teams within the ecosystem have worked on, not just core developer teams, and it is also going to scale Ethereum, right? The thing that we're all here to pretty much do. It's going to help with scaling layer 2s, which I'm very much looking forward to. But anyway, you can check out all those EIP 4844 resources. I'll link them in the YouTube description below. All right, so I did mention this mev-boost-relay kind of attack that happened yesterday with a validator that decided to steal a relayer's money here, or kind of like a builder's, I should say, money here, and it was over $20 million. Well, yesterday when I covered the news, it was still very fresh, and there wasn't much information out about it. Well, today there is more information out. So Samsung has a great thread talking about this, about how it actually worked, what the attacker did, and how this is something that was assumed that wouldn't happen and now has happened. So it's kind of changed the game a bit around MEV boost. So you can check out Samsung's thread. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. Now, as a consequence of this attack, the validator that actually participated in this attack was slashed because they essentially were slashed for what's called proposer equivocation, which is, as Terence explains here, when an eligible proposer makes two or more conflicting block proposals, which means that they went against the network rules and they were slashed because of that. Now, of course, slashing this validator is actually just the cost of doing business, because they were slashed, from what I can see, for 1 ETH. They were obviously kicked out of the validator set, but their profit was over $20 million from this attack. Now, this attack was not an attack on the Ethereum protocol itself. I think I should make that clear. It was an attack on the mev-boost infrastructure that people use for building blocks. But what ended up happening was, even though the validator was able to get the money from the mev-boost network, they still didn't play by the rules of the Ethereum network, and the Ethereum network was able to slash them because of that. Now, as I said before, this slashing didn't really do anything because essentially it punished someone for doing something that they profited from, but they didn't profit from the network itself. They profited from the sidecar software known as mev-boost. I think that's a very important point people should be aware of, that the attacker didn't actually profit from exploiting the Ethereum protocol. It profited from exploiting the mev-boost software that allowed them to do this. And look, there is different ways to look at these sorts of stuff, and there's a lot of open questions here, and there's a lot of smart people thinking about this and talking about this. I've seen a bunch of conversations happening today, but I think that the facts need to be laid out there so people don't say, oh, wow, the Ethereum protocol was attacked and people stole money because the protocol was attacked. No, that's not what happened. The attack was on the mev-boost infrastructure, which has since been patched, actually, by the way. So Chris Hager here from Flashbots put out or shared a link to a GitHub pull request that will update the mev-boost-relay codebase, which will mitigate some of this attack. Now, from my understanding, it doesn't mitigate everything in this attack, but there was kind of conflicting information about this on Twitter. So there was someone saying that it wouldn't mitigate the an attack happening where a validator or a pool of validators was able to propose more than one block in a row. So essentially, proposers know ahead of time when they're going to propose a block. Now, for example, Coinbase has 10% or something, 12% of the total share of staked ETH, or of validators, I should say. So they potentially have a pretty high chance of being able, with all their validators, to propose 2 blocks in a row. Now, from my reading on this, and I don't know if this is true or not because there is conflicting reports here. I don't think it's true, but someone said that because of that, this patch doesn't actually protect against that attack. So, for example, if Coinbase wanted to, I'm not saying that they would do this, but if they wanted to, they could perform the attack over multiple blocks. Now, for a single validator that's controlled by only kind of one person, and they've only got control over one validator, for them to propose multiple blocks in a row, the chances of that happening are extremely low. Like, it's a 1 in 550,000 chance, like every kind of like block. I actually think it's even less than that, because once you account for what are the chances of proposing more than one block in a row, and you actually look back, I actually don't think that a single validator has ever proposed more than one block in a row, because the chances are so infinitely small. So it's not even worth worrying about that. But obviously, when it comes to someone that controls a lot of validators, or a large percentage of them, they have a much better chance. Now, still, like one individual would find it very hard to control a huge amount of validators, right? Because it's very expensive to do that, but that would still be a problem. Now, as I said, there's conflicting reports about that attack vector, because I did see another person saying that attack vector isn't actually possible because the network would reject that block as not being the one that was that was the most voted on, the most attested to. So anyway, that goes beyond my understanding of the actual consensus protocol or consensus mechanism that Ethereum uses and how it actually works at a really deep level. But yeah, just keep your mind open to that. I'll hopefully be able to share more on that as more analysis is done on this attack. But I'll link these 3 resources in the YouTube description below for you to check out. All right, so speaking of stakers having, staking pools having a large share over the network, I talk about this a lot on the Refuel, and Superfuse had a great tweet about this today where he said, Asking all Ethereum staking providers to limit themselves to 22% of validators isn't some arbitrary number. This threshold means at least 4 entities must collude to reach network consensus with 66% of validators. Ideally, 66% would require far more than 4 entities, but shrug. And then Superfish says, turns out some folks have DM'd me because the math that says it takes 4 entities seems confusing. And then he just lists out here, each entity would control 22%, and then it would exceed 66% here. And the fourth entity wouldn't even need to control 22% to do that. I've said before in the refuel that I think that it's kind of hard to know an exact percentage of what would be an acceptable percentage for any one entity to have control over validators on the network. I've said before that I think no more than 10% per entity would be cool. 22% is the minimum, I think, I should say the maximum. Whereas 10% would be probably the ideal case, 5 to 10%, which I do realize is a bit of a pipe dream. I don't think it's ever going to happen like that. But there is a kind of like non-arbitrary thing you can point to, and that is this 66% number. So ideally, we want to get as many entities as possible to have to collude in order to control more than 66% of the network. As it currently stands, you would need... Look, this is actually where I disagree with a lot of people. So people will say that, and I've said this before, that Lido is 30% of the network, and that means that that's one entity. I don't actually agree with that, because Lido as an entity, the DAO, doesn't actually control the validators. So if they wanted to attack the network, they wouldn't be able to, because the validators are controlled by the different entities, or 30 different entities that are validating as part of the Lido network. Now, of course, there are certain functions that could be invoked to do a complex attack on the network in some kind of way. I would need to dive deeper into that to see if it would be actually possible to somehow take over the 30 entities validators and use them for nefarious purposes as part of the Lido network. But let's just assume that you can do that, right? Let's just assume that you can. I'm not saying you can, because as I said, I don't know enough about the architecture to speak to it either way, but let's just say you can do that. So if you can use Lido, Lido's 30% of the network, right? And then I'm just bringing it up here on rated.network, and then you have Coinbase is 13%. You get up to 35%, just to round it up. You get Kraken 42%, Binance 48%. And then you go down the list, you pretty much need, just eyeing it right now, 12 entities to get to 66%. So we're actually pretty good, right? We're actually in a pretty good place right now. We're much more than 4. We're at 12. Obviously, it's not ideal to only be at 12, right? And obviously, we would like it to be a lot higher than that. And I think it will be in the future. I think we're gonna be able to get it to much more than 12 entities, but it's definitely much better than 4. But this kind of like self-limiting to 22% of the total stake share, or total validator share, I should say, on the network, is not just plucked out of someone's behind, right? It is definitely a non-arbitrary number. So I just wanted to point that out to people as how people come to this number, and how it's not just arbitrary. All right, so some really, really positive news, and I'm very happy about, and I love that I get to report on this. Most of the funds have been returned to the Euler protocol. So pretty much all the funds except, I believe, what was it? There was, I think if I look up here, I had the numbers in front of me before, and I just want to see here if I've got them. No, but I think that the vast majority was returned, except for like a few hundred ETH or something like that was sent to, or sent through Tornado Cash. So this is an absolutely amazing outcome, and we couldn't have asked for a better outcome, I think, as an ecosystem on this note here. I think, as I said, 99% or something of the funds was returned, which means that users were pretty much almost completely made whole, and the Euler Labs team can just begin focusing on hardening the protocol, restarting the protocol, and continuing to build it out. So just a really, really, really great outcome for Euler here, for DeFi, for all the users. I couldn't be happier about this. And also, I couldn't be happier about being wrong. Like, I was very wrong. Remember I said that I figured that there was a low chance that the funds would be returned because the hacker had started washing them through Tornado Cash? Well, I'm so glad that I'm right. I probably, I'm not going to say I've never been happier to be wrong, but I'm very, very happy that I'm wrong in this instance. So I'm very happy that a few Daily Gwei Discord members that were caught up in this were able to get their funds back, especially because as I've said before, the worst thing that can happen to you in crypto is being out of position when the market has kind of bottomed and is trying to, I guess, go up, right? I'm not saying that we're in a new bull market or anything like that, but the worst thing that could happen to you in crypto is blowing up. And blowing up comes in many forms. One of those forms is unfortunately losing money in a smart contract hack. Now those people get their money back and they'll be able to continue being exposed to the crypto ecosystem. And they'll be able to continue enjoying everything the ecosystem has to offer. So I'm really glad about this. So just wanted to put that out there. This saga has come to an end. Right, an interesting protocol that I came across today is something called Intmax, which seems to be building a ZK rollup, and they're saying here they're building a ZK rollup for all kinds of web services and finances. Now, the reason I came across them was because they announced a partnership with, or a collaboration with Scroll's cutting-edge community-first ZK EVM technology. So yeah, they're essentially partnering up with Scroll to build alongside them to use their technology here. And there's a blog post describing what this is, which I think is really, really cool. Now, I don't know too much about Intmax, so I can't comment on what they've been doing. As I said, I only came across them today, and I can't comment on how obviously legit they are or anything like that. But if they're working with Scroll, I would say that they're legit, because Scroll is a very legit team. I know a lot of the folks at Scroll, you guys know I'm an investor in them. They are one of the best teams in this ecosystem, and they've, as I said, they've partnered with this new project that I came across called Intmax, and they're actually going to be doing an event in Tokyo on April 17th from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Alongside Scroll. So you can go there, ask more about them, and get to know them better. And apparently they plan to launch their alpha version of Intmax on Ethereum mainnet in Q2. So basically April, May, or June. And they say here, stay tuned for more information and join our community. So you can go follow their Twitter page to keep up to date with what they're doing. Just super excited to see more ZK teams working together. Right, another interesting product that I came across today was something that has been built by OpenEden. So Eugene, one of the, I believe, founders of OpenEden, tweeted out a thread today saying, "Today I'm happy to unveil OpenEden, the first smart contract vault managed by a regulated financial institution to offer 24/7 direct access to US treasuries. Our on-chain vault is a natural product market fit for crypto treasuries, DAOs, DeFi protocols, and VC funds today." So you guys know I've been a big advocate for real-world assets coming to DeFi, and well, this is a protocol bringing real-world assets to DeFi, and one of the biggest real-world assets are US treasuries. So this is an absolutely huge market. This is not something, I think, to be taken lightly. I think this is something that is going to definitely push the space forward, push DeFi forward. Yes, it is not going to be decentralized. Yes, there's probably going to be KYC and AML. Yes, it's probably not going to be available to everyone. But that's the kind of thing that happens with these products, right? And the fact of the matter is that TradFi is a very closed ecosystem, and bringing things on chain, while allow them to be, I guess, more open than their TradFi counterparts, still comes with drawbacks. But that shouldn't take away from the fact that bringing this stuff on chain is definitely a huge positive, and definitely a way to bring a lot more money into the crypto ecosystem, a lot more users, and a lot of users that are not necessarily crypto natives, but TradFi natives that will get exposed to crypto and get exposed to DeFi while doing this. So here you go. This is how it actually works. So how does their vault work? Well, KYC to get approved in 15 minutes. So as I said, there obviously is going to be KYC on this. Deposit USDC into the T-bill vault and mint T-bill tokens instantaneously, and redeem T-bill tokens for your USDC. So that's the process there. It's pretty painless actually, which is pretty cool. I think this stuff definitely needs to be painless to be able to do this, and to be able to do this at scale. And then they continue, Eugene continues on this thread about what they believe T-bill tokens to be. It'll be more institutional grade, more DeFi, more transparent, more compliant, and then more institutional grade. And then he defines each four of these things here in the thread. One thing that I think is really cool is to focus on this institutional grade. So he defines this as having a fiat on and off ramp with DBS, the largest Southeast Asian bank, and Circle. The broker custody is Saxo and IBKR, one of the largest brokerages globally. Tax is done by KPMG. Legal, Harneys, a leading law firm in BVI, the British Virgin Islands. Fund admin is done by a Singapore licensed fund admin, CAI. Now, all of these companies and institutions and kind of entities here, you may not have heard of pretty much all of them except KPMG. I've seen their name thrown around a bit, and maybe DBS. Obviously, you've heard of Circle, but the rest of them you probably haven't heard of before. These are big companies and big entities in the TradFi space. The fact that they're coming into DeFi via products like this is extremely bullish, guys. Like, I can't stress this enough. This is very bullish for the ecosystem. This is how we bridge the DeFi ecosystem with the TradFi ecosystem and grow it much more than where we are today. You know, we got up to what, 100 billion TVL in Ethereum-based DeFi at the top of the bull market. That's bloody peanuts, guys. We're going for 100 trillion plus. We're going for potentially $1 quadrillion in the derivatives market. Like, we are so small still, and we need these TradFi firms. We need this big money and these big institutional grade investors and players to come into the ecosystem in order to get DeFi to the next level. And that's exactly what this is doing. So anyway, I'm going to stop gushing about this product. I just was really, really happy to see this because I truly do believe that real-world assets are the next big thing for DeFi. They are already huge. I mean, the biggest assets in DeFi today or in crypto today that aren't crypto assets or that aren't assets that you speculate on are stablecoins, right? And they're real-world assets. USDC, USDT, and all the other centralized stablecoins are real-world assets. They're just IOUs on-chain of those assets sitting in a bank account. So obviously it's huge, but yeah, you can go check out this thread from Eugene. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, last up here, we have an announcement from Dune Analytics. They're launching their Dune SQL feature, a brand new homegrown default query engine. It's specifically tailored for crypto data and will be the foundation of a faster, more powerful, and more usable Dune. So anyone who builds Dune dashboards or likes tinkering around with them, this is definitely relevant for you. Just wanted to highlight it for you guys because Dune Analytics is one of my favorite platforms to use for getting insights into a number of different things within the crypto ecosystem. I should disclose that I am an investor in Dune Analytics. I invested in them quite a while ago because I saw the vision here. I saw what they were trying to do, and they've just kept kicking goals over the years. I'm a very happy supporter of them. But yeah, you can go check out this thread with more details about what this is and how they've improved on things. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. But on that note, that's going to be it for today. So thank everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.